Hi, I'm Dr. Rozina, and you're listening to Heart Healthy Hustle by my friend Jonathan Frederick.
Welcome to the Heart Healthy Hustle Show. Let's get after it.
What are you fighting for? What are you getting after? What seeds are you planting? What are you overcoming? Think big. Think even bigger. Take some risks. God's got your back. Go for it. Don't hold back. Don't ever have regrets in your life. Go fail. Go grow from those things. Live your life.
Your identity is not defined by your successes or your failures.
If you're not happy where you're at, you won't be happy where you're going. Choose to do the things that will make you the person you want to be, that will make you a better person next week and next year.
You're going to have to leave some things you're actually good at behind so that you can find what you're wired for, what you're born for.
Being a world-class entrepreneur is being in every area of life excellent.
It is the little things that are so easy not to do.
The best thing that you can do is assume the best in people.
I want people around the world to believe they can do something great with their life.
If I build the biggest business, but I destroy my physical body and I lose my health, I don't think that's success. While you're on the journey climbing to success, never forget the things that matter most.
If you like this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can get notified every time a new episode is released. Welcome back to an inspiring episode of the Heart Healthy Hustle Show. I'm your host, Jonathan Frederick. Today's guest, Dr. Rozina Lakhani. She is a psychiatrist, an author, and a speaker. Dr. Rozina's mission is to prevent stress and suffering in society and promote health and happiness. Dr. Rozina, welcome to the show. I'm excited to speak with you.
Thank you. I'm really grateful.
I'm interested to hear a brief story. You are a psychiatrist. Go ahead and fill in any gaps from the intro to share with my audience so they get an idea of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
I am a psychiatrist. That means I'm a medical doctor that specializes in treatment for mental illnesses. And I further specialize in treatment of depression, anxiety, and stress-related conditions. And so people, by the time they come to me, they are in the pretty advanced stages of depression, because I also treat severe resistant depression with TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation. And so over the last 20 years that I have been practicing, I kept on thinking that, these people, what if we can educate things before they get so sick so they don't have to become that sick? Yeah. I'll give you an example of a typical patient. Her name is Marla. She's 40 years old. Of course, I'm changing the name for privacy's sake. Right. But she's a 40-year-old woman who was really happy and professional woman, has kids, and was kind of running between all these responsibilities. And her stress level was really high. But she kept on going on and on and on. And gradually the stress started showing in form of her sleep difficulties, irritability, her appetite changes. She still didn't recognize. And then she developed depression. And then she kept on going until she started feeling suicidal. So by the time she came to me, she was in severe depression. She was feeling suicidal. She did not want to die because she loved her family. She loved her life, but she was so depressed. And so we had to give her the medication and other advanced treatments. But then we also have to teach her some mind training tools so that we can prevent the depression from recurring. Now, these same techniques could be used by people who are not depressed yet. They can prevent suffering. So I kept on thinking, geez, can we teach these things before people get so depressed so we can prevent this suffering? And that was kind of going on until life threw a curveball to me. About 14 years back, I was in a car accident and I broke my right hand. And I started feeling down myself, and I had an epiphany when I was visiting a family member, and I was helped to go in the shower. But if you have lost a dominant hand in your life, or somebody has, they would realize how these simple things affect your whole life. Yeah, I was in the shower. I cannot come out until somebody helps me. My family was downstairs, so they could not hear that I was done. I felt like this peak of helplessness. I went back in the shower and I was banging the wall of shower because I was feeling so frustrated and helpless. And then I had epiphany. I said, I'm banging the wall of shower with my left hand. What if I would have lost my left hand too? What if I would have lost my eyes?
Yeah.
What if I would have lost my mind or my life? Or like I had a 5-year-old son at that time, and he was in car with me for the whole week before that. That was the first day he returned back to school. What if something would have happened to him? So suddenly my mind shifted, and I started recognizing things or appreciating things that I still had. And a few days later, I was sitting in the bed, and because I couldn't sleep, I'm a right-sided sleeper, and with all these nails around my hand, I could not sleep. And so I was sitting, and my friend had given me a journal that was sitting on my bedside. So that was the first day when I pulled that journal with my left hand, and I started writing with my left hand. And I wrote, "I'm grateful for my left hand and my eyes that I could see, and a pillow to rest my hand, and a husband sleeping on my side, and ability to endure this pain."
Wow, that's a powerful story. I appreciate you sharing that. I know a lot of people who have been in accidents maybe can relate to that. Unfortunately, many times, as you've seen in your practice, I'm sure, people oftentimes will go through events, traumatic events, even emotionally traumatic events, and instead of being able to find these epiphanies or realize the blessing in the tragedy, they oftentimes will kind of cascade or spiral. So what I'd like to do is, you mentioned previously, there are tactics, there are methods that you encourage your patients to use. And again, this is not, this is all, guys, I always say, take it with a grain of salt, no matter who is recommending anything. In other words, you're not going to be holding Dr. Rozina accountable if this stuff works or doesn't work for you. So I've had multiple friends who have lost their father to a tragic death, and they were probably in their late teenage years when this happened to them. Most of them, from what I can tell from what they've shared, go through a dark period in their life, and then they turn the tragedy into triumph by maybe using it as a catalyst for them to grow and realize that, in fact, they would like to make that deceased parent who has now passed proud of them and live a life that will continue the legacy of their past father. Many people don't really know how to do that, or maybe they could use some help transitioning. So is there things you can share with people who are going through hard times to avoid them going into a depression or something terrible like that?
I consider all these challenges in life, or what we can also call stressors in life, like traffic light on the road of life. Sometimes it's green and life is flowing smoothly. And sometimes they're yellow, and you have to kind of either use all your resources to get through it, or slow down and take a stop and gather yourself. Sometimes they are red. You have to stop and get all your resources together. And then after a few minutes, the traffic would start flowing. And in life, it may be. And then sometimes the traffic lights are malfunctioning. They just stop, and it causes traffic jam. No matter how bad the traffic jam is, it always starts flowing. So just know that no matter how bad, how difficult the challenge in life is, it would start flowing. Sometimes you can do it by yourself, and sometimes you need somebody to direct. And it's okay to get help when needed. There are 3 basic steps that are part of the Stress to Joy program. They are ACR: acknowledge, calm down, and reflect.
Acknowledge, calm down, and reflect.
Yes. A stands for acknowledge. And unless a person acknowledges where they are, they cannot go where they want to go. Let's say, for example, I was driving to a seminar lately, and I got lost. And what do I do? What do people do when they get lost? They try to call somebody. And so I called my husband, and I was getting so frustrated, and I was just kind of spilling, "Oh my God, I'm late. I'm going to be late, and everybody's going to be upset," and da, da, da. And my husband said, and I was so upset, I kept on going on, and he said, "Rozina, stop. Calm down. Tell me where you are." So then I calmed down and I looked and I said, okay, I'm here and I'm here and I see this place and this place. And then he said, okay, go this way and take this route and you'll be there. So point is that until I acknowledged where I was, I could not go where I wanted to go. So the first step of dealing with any issue in life is to acknowledge. And I differentiate acknowledge from acceptance because people say, accept where you are, accept what it is. Unless you accept, you won't be able to go. But sometimes people confuse acceptance maybe meaning that you are kind of giving up, and you don't have to do anything. Acknowledge where you are. Even if you're feeling really bad or you're grieving, in your friend's case, you're grieving a loss, acknowledge and say it's okay. It's okay to feel the grief. And once you say, okay, it's okay, you stop fighting what is, then you are able to identify where you want to go, what you want to do. Then you can start taking the steps. So that is our first step of acknowledge. The second step is to calm down. Because when you're so worked up, you're middle of something, you're not able to think through. You're not able to think through the solution. So you have to calm your brain down. And so there are many different techniques that we can use to help ourselves calm down. As I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be interviewing with you, what is something that would really help the audience? And so I thought, most podcast listeners are listening while driving. What if I can teach mindful driving exercise? Would you like me to?
Yes, please go ahead.
So mindfulness means being present in the moment, observing and being aware of everything that is happening in the moment without judgment. So I say, okay, become aware of what is outside you, become aware of what is inside you, and become aware of how your thinking is going on. So next time when you are driving, or if you are driving while you're listening to this, just bring attention to what you are doing in this moment. Bring attention to how your body feels, how your legs are moving automatically between accelerator and the brake, how your legs are feeling and how your back is feeling against the car seat. If you're starting to drive, how your hand moves on the key, how your hand is on the steering wheel. What are you seeing? How the scene is changing moment by moment. Become aware of, even if you're stuck in the traffic, become aware of people around you, the signs, the view that you're getting, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, even if there is a smell in your car. But become totally aware of all the sense. Use all your senses to become aware of the moment, and then become aware of how it feels inside your body, and then become aware of your thoughts. So many times, people are getting really upset while driving if they're getting stuck, or they're thinking about what they're going to do next, or they're upset about something that happened before they started driving. So our mind is usually going all over the place. It's not where we are. I even myself, I used to kind of plan my whole day while driving or to work. Or when coming back, I would be thinking about, different cases or different...
The most frustrated I ever get driving is when I try to use it as a time of solitude, because it gets so aggressively interrupted with cars in front of you jamming the brakes, or people driving very nasty, or things like this. I've found that is why I get so mad if I'm driving and somebody does something dangerous around my vehicle, is probably because I'm trying to, with the constant influx of information and the overload of information that we all get, it can be a challenge to find anywhere where we can just be by ourselves and rest and just be calm and quiet. So when I'm driving, if I'm alone, let's say it's a commute to or from work, it automatically becomes a desirable time for me, because I say, oh, I like this alone time. I get to choose, do I listen to my favorite music? Do I listen to my favorite podcast? And it becomes an issue because then someone in front of me slams the brakes, or somebody cuts you off, or your car has a problem, and you're instantly back into the reality of the moment.
I define being mindful as a meditation. So you can actually convert your driving experience as a mindful meditation exercise. So yes, you won't be alone, but what you are talking about is where your mind is going somewhere else. You're listening to something and kind of analyzing, so your mind kind of shifted somewhere else. And what I'm saying is stay in the moment. and
Gotcha.
becoming aware of your thinking, where it is going, what you are doing, and enjoying the process of driving itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And even if you're getting stuck and if you're getting frustrated, observing that frustration, observing those thoughts coming, I'm doing this again. All right, let me bring myself back.
Yeah.
So that is mindfulness, moment by moment awareness.
Okay.
Letting go of judgment, like, this is bad, this is wrong, these people are bad drivers. So your mind keeps on judging right or wrong all the time, and letting go of that judgment. So intentionally bringing attention to, and then you would start enjoying this process of driving.
Okay, so we have acknowledge the issues, calm down, and then we have R. Is that right?
That's right. And that is reflection. Once you are calmed down, then you can reflect on how to respond to whatever situation you're facing. And it's a habit of reflection that allows you to, instead of reacting to issues in life, responding with intention. Like, say if somebody puts a brake in front of you while you're driving, or at work somebody says something and you feel really frustrated, one thing would be just screaming, which would be your reaction, knee-jerk reaction without thinking. The other one would be calming down and say, I need to say something to this person so that it does not get repeated. But then you're thinking through it and you say, if screaming is the best way to do it, then go ahead and do the screaming. But if you think screaming is not going to get you what you need, then you will be able to think through and say, okay, it may not help anyways at this point in time. Let me calm down, and later on we can sit down and talk about it, that how this person could behave differently. I find that once you start writing things, it clarifies things a lot. So I really recommend journaling to help you reflect.
Why does that work? I agree. I actually have found journaling helps me a lot. What is it about that helps so much to declutter the mind?
Because once you put your pen down, your mind has to kind of completely focus on what you are thinking through. So it kind of get rid of other things that are cluttering your mind. Then it also establishes, how if you're in school or college, or if our listeners are, whenever they want to remember something, they write it down, right? Jot down. So it establishes in your brain, you have committed to it. So you are going to remember to do it later. So writing down makes things establish in your brain, kind of puts an imprint. And the more senses you're using, the more likely your brain is going to be able to follow through. So writing establishes a pathway, neuronal pathways in your brain, and therefore it really helps.
Is journaling considered part of the reflection?
Yes, so you can reflect in many different ways. Like you can talk to a friend or your advisor or your family member, or you can just reflect in your brain while you're sitting by yourself, or you can write it down. I recommend writing because it helps you to talk with yourself. Some people just write down everything that happened through the day, and it really helps them to process what has happened. I tell people to start with a gratitude journal. You know how I was telling you how I started writing my gratitude journal? That was about 14 years back. And today, 14 years later, every single day, I start my day with my gratitude journal. I write, I'm grateful for, and then I write down whatever comes to my mind. And then I go further detail if I have time. If I don't have time, I would just write three words and then start my day. But what it does is it starts helping your brain to go from focusing on what is not working to what is working.
I can hear people saying, well, that's not going to get anything done, because a lot of type A personalities will say, well, I have to focus on what is not working so we can make it work.
That's right.
So how do you deal with that?
Well, I'm a type A personality myself, so I have gone through that. Once you start writing the gratitude journal, then you can go further on in terms of areas that you want to improve. In addition to my book, I just recently published Stress to Joy Guided Gratitude Journal. I usually share my journal to, friends and family. And one of my nephews, he's 30-year-old, and he was visiting. And I was showing him that you should write this. This really helps me. It may help you too. And he said, why don't you publish something like this? I have been thinking about it for a long time, but I didn't know where to start and how to start. And so that kind of led to the publishing of Guided Gratitude Journal. Now, the question is, and this is what I ask every single patient of mine when I'm writing their prescription. I say, okay, while I'm writing the prescription, tell me 3 things that you're grateful for. And so they start identifying things. And what it does is it shifts their energy. Because when they come in my office, they are talking about all the problems, and then we discuss what are the options, but their energy is really negative because they are focused on what is not working. When I ask them to focus on at least few things that are working, their energy changes.
Yeah.
And the mind starts focusing on things that are working. And once the mind is more positive, then it is able to take steps of dealing with things that are not working.
Yeah, that's a big thing is from a biological level, doesn't the act of expressing gratitude release serotonin and other hormones that would help to calm somebody?
Yes, definitely. A recent research actually showed, they found that not only that it releases the hormones that makes your mood get better and your health gets better, that is actually changes in your medial prefrontal cortex that is being observed when you practice gratitude.
Wow. I absolutely love that because like you, I'm a type A personality. There are times where I can go a little bit too far to the imbalance of working too hard or focusing on what's not working and try to fix it, or solution oriented, as opposed to sometimes just taking a step back and realizing it's all going to work out and I don't need to stress about it. So with your book, Stress to Joy, Rozina, would you talk to us about identifying some ways to avoid emotional eating? Because I know some people struggle with this. Your work is very fascinating to me and very intriguing. That's really why I brought you onto the show, is really asking about these things because you've experienced many different patients at this point, many different situations. So I'm curious to know, do you oftentimes come into contact with people who their issue, the root issue, is quite clear to you? However, they are completely not aware of how obvious it is that their emotional, perhaps eating or a symptom that they're having in their life, manifesting itself in the way they're living their life, is in fact due to a root issue that is quite clear to you, but not to them. Does that happen?
All the time. All the time.
Again, going back to the acknowledgement, I feel that it's important to emphasize acknowledging the issue versus acknowledging the symptoms. But I'm wondering, how do you lead people to acknowledge the root issues so that they can truly heal, truly grieve, and truly reflect in a way that isn't just treating the symptoms?
I think that is the biggest challenge of this work, is to how to lead the person to that point of identifying, because once they identify, half of the work is done. So it so happened one time I was talking to a patient who was a nurse, and she was talking about how stuck she feels, that she doesn't have time for her own self-care. We in healthcare profession, we are all so focused on trying to provide care to others that many times we don't take care of ourselves. So she was talking about her frustration and her helplessness. And so I was brainstorming with her, okay, you can do this, you can do this. What about this? What about that? And here in my mind behind, I'm thinking, Rozina, you need to hear this yourself. Rozina, you need to hear that. Because we are so good advisors to others, but we are not so good advisors to ourselves. So that week, because at that point in time, I was having so much back pain and I wanted to go to my own chiropractor, but my schedule was so tight that I could not go. And then I would feel guilty if I had to cancel my patient's appointment to take care of myself. So anyways, I was struggling with that. So that weekend, I sat down and I did this self-dialogue journal. It was a dialogue between a doctor and a patient, where I was the patient and I was the doctor. And so I was saying, oh, I feel so upset and I feel so helpless. I can't take care of myself. I felt like I was stuck in the web of my own creation. So as a doctor, I was advising, what if you do this? What if you do that? And so we kind of, not we means I myself, as a patient, as a doctor, in my self-dialogue journal, went through, okay, what is the issue? The issue was that I needed time to take care of myself. Then I said, okay, what are the options? Okay, option 1, option 2, option 3. Well, I can't do this because I can't take the whole day off. Oh, I can't do this. I feel guilty canceling all the patient. Oh, what if this? What if this? And so finally, so what is the action plan? So the action plan that came out was, okay, I can't take the whole day off, but what if on once a month I consolidate my patients and create like a 3-hour time block, which would be my time to take care of my doctor's appointment. And by the time I finished the journal, I felt such a big relief, as if there was a burden taken off my shoulder, because I was no more helpless victim. I was a victor in the sense that I could do something. And it took a whole month to change my schedule like that, but I felt like I can do something. So since then, I have taught this technique to many people. So I had a teacher who did the dialogue between a student and the teacher. I had a friend, a person who did a dialogue between friend to friend. I had a mother who did a dialogue between mother and daughter. So my audience at this point in time, whatever situation you are in, if you feel like, there's somebody that you are a good advisor to, do a self-dialogue journal between that person and yourself, and see what would you advise your friend if she or he was going through exactly what you are going through, as you get yourself out of your own way.
What you are telling yourself.
That's right. Because if somebody else is going through what you're going through, you can come up with, say, oh, just let it go, or do this or do that. Then you have to hear your own advice, what your inner self would advise you, and then you can follow through.
One of my favorite ways to learn is through listening. I do enjoy reading, but listening allows you to multitask. Let's say you're driving to work, you're running errands, cleaning up on a Saturday, whatever you're doing. Audio allows you to multitask, and that's why I've reached out to audible.com to get a promo set up between Heart Healthy Hustle Nation and Audible. I became an Audible affiliate, so you can get a free Audible audiobook. I use Audible for many of my audiobooks, tremendous selection of books readily available. So if you don't want to spend a monthly subscription to Audible, you can get one free Audible book, put in your name and email, then you will get a free audiobook, at which point you can listen to that audiobook, keep it forever, and cancel your subscription before 30 days so that you don't get charged for the monthly subscription. This way you get a free book. You guys are awesome. Go to triplehaudiobook.com. That's HHH.audiobook.com. Shifting gears here, Rozina, I'm interested to hear your opinion on this. I've had multiple people who, have come and go in my life who, and it's a very small percentage, and it's unfortunate, but there are people out there like this. Unfortunately, the manner in which they share or leverage their symptoms to try to guilt other people into friendship or favors or unhealthy disrespect of boundaries, things like that. And they justify it with, well, I have depression, or I have this, I do this. And again, it's very tragic if anyone's listening deals with depression. I'm not just talking about that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who perhaps identify with symptoms due to root issues and use that identification to then leverage others around them in their life and in their world and their circle of influence in a negative manner. What are some ways that healthy, proactive, grounded individuals can use, or things that we can do to encourage those people to respect boundaries? My approach to these types of people is to cut them out of my life, of course, and as loving as possible, but usually it comes to a head where I just get frustrated and say, the way you're treating this situation or bringing me into this is not healthy, and I don't appreciate it. And I would appreciate if you didn't do that. And once that happens 3 times, I say, okay, I hope you enjoy your life. I do not believe we should be friends anymore. Is there a way that we can help recognize when this kind of behavior is starting to appear in your life and how to avoid it?
One thing that as professionals in mental health, we learn to develop is called empathy. So you develop empathy for people without becoming too sympathetic. So it's kind of difference between recognizing what the other person is doing and still staying within your own shoes and having that boundary. because I am in a profession where I hear a lot of very difficult stories throughout the day. And if I'm not able to create that boundary, then I would become so depressed and I won't be able to help this person at all. And so I have to develop this technique of kind of what we call zipping up your energy bubble around you. So that negative energy does not affect you so much that then your functioning gets affected. Bringing it to how you can deal with your situation. Let's say if you have a friend who is using or identifying so much with their illness and not taking the steps to get better, you can identify that this is their boundary and this is my boundary, how much I am able to help this person without letting that negative energy coming in my energy bubble. And so you become good listener, you empathize with them, and you know what you can do and what you cannot do. Focus on what you can do and then limit yourself over there instead of focusing on what they can do. And that usually allows you to have this balance between both being helpful yet having your own boundary.
I'm a lot harsher with my approach. I've had even judgment aside, just from a standpoint of protecting my personal health, I personally agree. I think empathy versus sympathy is so powerful. If you have sympathy, it's almost like you can be leveraged by that negativity, as opposed to empathy is a true kindness shown to this person or situation, as opposed to sympathy. As I don't tolerate much of that in my life because I find that it comes and goes. And when it comes, it's typically there to try to divert me from making an impact or from helping other people who will be able to be helped. And I'm curious, and the reason I ask you in particular is because your work, your field of work, I'm sure, like you said, you hear a lot of stories from people who perhaps they are unwilling to face themselves and face the way that they're acting, and how that's negatively impacting their life and perpetuating negative symptoms in their life. And personally, I've really striving to fix the lens that I've used for so much of my life, whether that's being overly cynical or seeing that people might be out to hurt me based on experiences of my past. So I've been healing a lot, honestly, in the last over the years. Obviously it's not easy to deal with people like that, but when I'm going through my own processes of trying to get right, it can be very frustrating when those types of, I call it emotional vampire, basically disrespect boundaries. I thought it's necessary for me to protect my life.
And that's very important, to know yourself, to know your boundaries, and to know where you're kind of going to not be able to take care of yourself. So, and the first approach of the 7 habits is compassion for yourself. So we are always talking about compassion for others, but it has to be balanced with compassion for yourself. So you don't have to be like totally selfish and within your circle, but you also don't have to be totally just focused on so much on other people's health and benefit that you sacrifice your own. Because if you don't take care of yourself, then you can't take care of others.
Right.
So there has to be this balance, and self-compassion is one of the most important approach in life that would help you be happy, healthy, and resilient against any of these stressors that come in your life.
Yeah, 100% agree. My heart goes out to people who are in fields of healthcare, particularly. It can be challenging. Going back to the nursing example, I have many friends who are nurses and they don't get much time for themselves. Even in their late 20s, they are busy working all the time. Some of them travel. It's something I think that they have a gift for. So it's good that they are the ones doing it. I don't believe I could handle that.
Well, that's why I'm kind of so focused on helping healthcare professionals develop these tools and techniques that they can implement within their busy life so that they don't burn out, so that they don't get sick, and they can enjoy their life fully while making difference in the world.
For me, one of the biggest things that encourages me is being around positive, upbeat people who I can share openly with, transparently, not necessarily vulnerably. I get a lot of boost from that, and vice versa, hearing from them. What are some ways that, let's say, a lonely business owner or a person running a private practice, what is your number one tip or piece of advice that you may share with them for connecting with other people in a similar situation?
I always say, if you want to make a friend, be a friend. So the first step is to show interest in other people's life. People like to talk about themselves. So talk to them about what interests them. So number one, show interest. Two, help them do whatever they are trying to do. And number three is ask. Ask for advice, ask for consultation, ask to help you. So it's like, as a lonely entrepreneur, if you are in any area, there are chambers of commerce. There's like business groups where you can meet other people. There's so many meetups, both online and offline. Become part of a group where you become friend to somebody, and then they would become friend to you in return.
If you want to make a friend, show interest in others' lives. Let's jump into the Heart Healthy Hustle round. It's a series of rapid fire questions: heart, health, and then hustle. So the first category is heart. What activity do you use to care for and strengthen your internal character?
My journaling.
Yeah, I was going to say, we kind of touched on that quite a bit. How about physical health? How do you maintain it, your physical health?
So I count 5 pillars for optimal health. One is good nutrition, because many people get really busy in their work and neglect their own nutrition. And then they're frustrated why they are feeling tired. And well, if you don't put the gas in the car is not going to go. So you have to take care of good nutrition. And I actually have alarms on my phone. It goes on every 3 hours, which alerts me to eat something. So even when I'm busy and I'm not able to sit down and have a meal, I carry these packets of healthy snacks, some almonds or some baby carrots or stuff like that I try to eat every 3 to 4 hours to keep healthy. So one is nutrition. The second is water. And so I've been in competition with my daughter in terms of, okay, I'm supposed to finish 4 bottles of water a day, that, a 16-ounce bottle. So that, a lot of people don't drink enough water nowadays. And then they're dehydrated and their mind is not working well and their body is tired. So there's a lot of body functions that cannot work well without enough water. So water, nutrition, sleep. Without sleep, your mind cannot function. Body exercise, so movement. You need to kind of have the movement in your body. And that's why I was, before our interview, I was appreciating you sharing how you are using standing desks to give you more exercise to your body during busy work. And my work is totally focused on professional people who may not have separate time to sit down or go to gym for 1 hour. But during the day, they can incorporate these 5-10 minutes of exercises that would keep their body in movement. And the fifth one is the mind exercises. So taking some time intentionally throughout the day to do, let's say, maybe mindful walking or mindful driving or mindful eating would allow you to train your brain to be present in the moment. And then if you're doing journaling, it would allow you to train your thoughts. So those are the 5 pillars or 5 approaches that I do and I recommend for optimum health. Food,
wonderful.
Nutrition, sleep, body exercise, and mind exercise.
Would you say a category of mind exercise could be learning a new software for work or a challenge at work that forces your mind to work? Is that an example of that? Or are you talking more about being mindful of mundane tasks?
Both are different aspects of stimulating brain. And, more and more research is showing if you want to avoid or decrease the chances of getting dementia as you grow up, do that by keeping your mind active. So any learning new software, any new route or music, all those things would help develop new brain cells, which would prevent you from having problems like dementia as you grow older.
In the midst of someone like myself who tries to perhaps delegate, optimize, automate, it is important to also be challenging myself so I can do these mind exercises and not just automate my entire life and have a robot deliver me my meals in a smoothie form, right? I feel like that's kind of where our society might be headed. So for hustle, what's your main motivation for doing what you do?
Well, my purpose in life is to make a difference in as many people's life as possible. When I started working on this book project, The Stress to Joy, my goal was to make a difference in at least 1 million people's life. And
Wow.
having that purpose, that goal, really helps you stay on path. Because if you just think about the next step and you get stuck, then it's really hard. I remember, when I was going through this finishing this project, there were times when I was ready to give up. It was just so hard. And so one time I was kind of cheerful, and I was talking to my coach, and says, what can you do to keep going? And I have a painting in my house. It has stairs, and at the end of the stairs, there is the doorway. And so I imagine that I'm going through these stairs, and once I reach there, I'm standing on top, and then I'm looking at on the other side, and there are these a million people on the other side. They're sending me thank you note for making a difference in their lives, and that got me going. Keeping that purpose, that intention, that endpoint where you are going to be able to do something significant really keeps me going. So I advise people to keep focus and keep getting better every day. So I say GBD, get better daily. And gradually you will reach the destination that you're trying to reach. And on the way, you can continue to make a difference in people who come around you.
I want to express gratitude to you for giving a lot of professional insight and advice to us about these areas and focusing in on mental health. It's a really important issue, especially in entrepreneurship. Physical burnout, it all ties together. If you can go back in time, you can walk in a park, maybe it's in Seattle or somewhere you were living in your early or mid 20s, maybe a restless time in your life, if you can remember back to this time, and you were present day walking and you saw yourself sitting on a park bench, and you could walk up and sit down next to yourself and put your arm around your own shoulder, what would you tell younger Rozina and why?
I would tell the younger Rozina that whatever happens for the best. Your job is to try again until you succeed. All these challenges are like traffic lights on road of life. Sometimes the lights would be green and life would be flowing smoothly, and sometimes they would be yellow and you may have to gather all your courage to get through it or slow down. Sometimes they would be red and you will have to stop, and it's okay. And there would be times in life when these traffic lights would be malfunctioning and the traffic would be jammed. And you may need other people's help to guide the traffic through. And if you are having a hard time and you're falling down, that does not mean failure. Each difficulty is a stepping stone towards your success. So keep trying. If you are tired of starting over and over again, don't give up. Keep trying. And no matter how challenging life is, it is going to get better. You can transform your stressors into opportunities for growth. Be true to yourself and know that whatever happens for your best.
What do you think is holding most proactive individuals back from fully thriving and actually becoming the person that they know they can be?
Fear and worry. Fear of failure, worry about people judging them or people not appreciating. And to them, I would say, if you are true to your heart and you are willing to work hard and do your best to make a difference in people's life, try again. And on the way, develop these mind training tools or mental approaches that help you to take care of yourself while taking care of others. And you would be successful.
Boom. Rozina, we were talking before about the gratitude journaling and how you were doing that after your car accident. We were speaking about how it led to the Stress to Joy program. Would you talk to us a bit about that and the struggles that you had to overcome in that process?
So that was 14 years back when I wrote my gratitude journal for the first time. Since that day till today, every day starts with my gratitude journal. I carry my journal with me, and I would find any time in between while waiting for something or in between clients or at the end of the day, I write at least 3 words that I'm grateful for. All my patients, when I'm writing the prescription, I ask them, tell me 3 things you're most grateful for. And I see how their energy changes from negative to positive. And when their energy is positive, they are able to think through their problem and resolve their issues much better.
Mm.
So over the next few years, I started gathering all those techniques in a folder on my computer. And then I collected all those techniques, and those became the basis for Stress to Joy program. And as I started helping the other people with those techniques, I saw that most of the people go through certain steps. Then I found out that a lot of my friends who are busy people may not have time to sit down to read, but they are driving a lot and they may be able to listen to the book. So then I made the audio book. One of my friends said, oh, I like to learn in a course. So if you do a course, let me know. And so then I made a video online course for people. And a few months back, as one of my nephews was visiting me, and I was showing him my gratitude journal, and he said, why don't you publish it? Because it would help so many people like me. Because I've been thinking about it, and I don't know how to start or where to start. So that's how I ended up bringing Stress to Joy guided gratitude journal.
Oh, so your nephew was the reason.
Yes, he was the
Wonderful.
He was the stimulant, he was my motivating factor to bring it out to the world.
Let's jump into a healthy grieving process. There are 5 stages to grief. Would you go into detail on that?
As we were talking earlier about your friend who has lost his father, he may be going through one of the 5 stages that people go through after they have a certain loss in life. I would really recommend anybody who is suffering significantly to get specialized help, see a therapist or see a counselor.
Yeah.
But just to educate briefly, when somebody faces a big loss in their life, first they go through total shock. They're kind of numb. They don't even realize that it has happened. And then the second stage is denial. It's like, it could not be. It may not have happened. This is just a nightmare. And tomorrow I'll wake up and the person would be back there. And then they go through further phase of anger. They feel angry for the person for leaving them, their loved one for leaving them. Then they go through depression. They feel sad about the loss. And then they come to acceptance. And that's where they come to peace with whatever has happened. And people go through these stages back and forth. So depending on where you are in the stage of grief, different things may help you. But educating yourself and accepting that you may be going through these different stages, and it's a normal part of grief process, may help you cope with it better.
What are some signs that someone might be in a certain stage? Do you ever find that people get stuck in stage 3 or 4?
Yes. So the normal grief phase lasts for up to 6 months. The closer the relationship, the longer it takes. But if it takes more than 6 months, then we call it complicated grief process. And in that case, the person is either stuck and they are not able to come out. And that's where they really, really need to seek professional help.
So would that be a counselor? What would be the ideal route for professional help if people are dealing with that?
Well, there are a lot of grief counselors. There are psychotherapists that you can work with. Some people go with their faith-based counselors, and some people like to go with licensed psychotherapist or social worker or grief counselor. Any of that will get work.
Some people potentially saying, well, I don't really need to do that, or I don't want to do that because I'm busy and I don't really care. They're not going to be able to understand my pain. and I don't really know them. So why would I open up to them and pay them to listen to my pain? If someone is in that stage, what would you recommend from a friendly standpoint?
Well, there are a lot of support groups also going on. Most of the hospitals offer them. There are online support groups. And so sometimes it may not be like, the other person is going to solve my problem. It's like, I'm going through this process and I need support through this process. So maybe talking to other people who are going through the similar process and maybe a different stage can help you go through your particular stage. So join a support group if you don't want to see a professional. But the sooner you take care of it, the faster you'll be able to get through the process and back to your functioning life.
We also talked about before maintaining healthy boundaries. These can be very intense when you're looking at familial relationships versus workplace relationships. Would you explain to us how to maintain boundaries, even how to set some boundaries with acquaintances or with friends to make sure that we are actually facilitating a healthy relationship versus people pleasing or not asserting ourselves in a healthy way?
It's an area that sometimes I also have difficulty despite knowing a lot, because when you are faced with these individual situations, it is hard. But one technique, one concept that really helps most of the time is the concept of circle of influence. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You remember the concept of circle of influence versus circle of concern? There's Stephen Covey talks about that everything that we are concerned about, that affect us, or that we feel passionate about, are things that are in our circle of concern. That is the bigger circle. There's a smaller circle within that bigger circle that is called the circle of influence. Those are the things that we can do something about. So let's say you are concerned about a friend who is going through their own difficulties, right? So you're concerned, this is your friend, you care about them, you want to help them, but then there's only some of the things that you can do. So like you can be there for them to talk to, or you can help give them advice or direct them in certain directions. Those are the things that you can do, that is in your circle of influence. But you cannot control how that person acts on your advice or how that person reacts in their day-to-day life. So their reaction is not in your control. What you can do to help is in your control. So every time you start kind of feeling really concerned about somebody, think about what is within my circle of influence that I can do. Therefore, I call this inner circle I can circle. What I can do within these circumstances. And every time your mind gets stuck on things that are outside your I can circle or circle of influence, then bring your thought back to what I can do about it. Because the more time you spend on outside your circle, the more energy is lost in things that you can't do anything about. If you focus that energy on inside your circle, then you can actually make a bigger impact and influence.
This is a powerful point. I'm a type A personality, so I'll use myself as an example. I find that being young men, it can be easy to try to assert ourselves, and young women as well, just who are very ambitious amongst their peers, or try to prove themselves or stand up for their opinions, kind of make it about ourselves, almost narcissistically. Our culture is leaning towards that kind of a outlook, I think, and not everyone, but largely with social media facilitating that, fostering that. My friend Brandon came on the show, episode 7, Brandon Lewis. Yeah, check that one out. He said people can give you advice, and if they are elders or people you respect, of course, heed their advice. However, realize that whatever advice you take from anyone, regardless of position, title, letters after their name or before their name, you are the only one who is going to be directly influenced by the advice taking. They won't. So if somebody gives you advice and says, here's what you can do to help this situation, and you take that advice, you will be affected, but they will go on with their life. I think it's important to look at this from both angles, where people who are listening to the show, and myself included, we're very open to learning. We're very open to finding new techniques or using techniques we haven't used before, taking advice and implementing it. It's very important to realize in that ambitious pursuit of excellence that not every piece of advice, even if it is great advice, not every piece of advice is great for you. Would you agree with that?
Totally agree with that. And I say one pill does not solve all the problems. Therefore,
yeah, that's right.
You want to have a whole bag of tools with you. And sometimes one thing would work, sometimes other thing would work. Sometimes an advice may not be appropriate for this person versus that person. So knowing yourself and being open, so getting all the information and then reflecting on it, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Use what is good and leave what is not. Eat the banana and throw the peels.
I've never heard that. I like that. I just had most of a banana, so yeah, I like that. That's fun.
One other quote that really makes an impact on me is, the only corner in this world that is in your control is you. You cannot control anybody else. You cannot control how other people react to you, but the only person you can control or only corner that is in your control is you. So focus on what you can do rather than what others can or should do.
Right. And I think having more empathy and trying very hard not to judge people is helpful in that. Yeah, and I like that circle of influence versus the circle of concern, because I've been, without really calling it that, I've been focusing on that over the last 2 years, and it's immensely helped my energy levels, my state of mind, my well-being, my mood, daily feeling more content and joyful. It's helped a lot. Something I tell myself as a prompt, whether in my head or out loud, I will say out loud sometimes. Sometimes people are just mean and rude. Sometimes it's just the case, and it's maybe has nothing to do with me. It has a lot to do with they had a fight with their partner, and then they're going through their day trying to work out, ruminating in their mind how they're going to win that fight later instead of make peace or something like this. So they're in a negative state of mind all day, and then they come across you and you're in their way or something. And same with driving on the road sometimes. Not everywhere, but just sometimes people can be rude. It just happens. And so what I tell myself in those situations, Rozina, is none of my energy. None. I literally say that out loud sometimes. I will just say no, because I know that I am susceptible to wanting to challenge or hit back. I just have to remind myself none of my energy goes to that. None. And it actually has helped me quite a bit, because it reminds me to stay in line, at least perceive that I'm being mistreated, or when in fact I know I'm being mistreated, which is rare, but it does happen.
It happens all the time to many different people in many different situations. And it's a wonderful tool that you are using. Sometimes I use the analogy of dog face. So I say, okay, if you're walking on the street and a dog starts barking at you, do you start barking back? No. What do? You ignore. Similarly, if next time somebody is barking at you, just imagine the face of a dog and put that face on the body of this person who is.
That's funny. That's funny. I like that. I may do that, and I'll probably be laughing a lot more now.
And that would help you to be more healthy and happy and cope with the stressor much better.
Yeah, I actually never heard that. So what is it called? Face of a dog?
No, I just call it dog face technique.
Dog face. Yes. Okay, moving on.
And all the difficulties or all the failures or things that you feel like are failures are stepping stone towards your success.
You also mentioned if you want to make a friend show interest in their life, ask them how you can help. A question that is coming to my mind, if someone is trying to help me, is there a way that I can better prepare myself to receive the help? Because many people, especially in America, everyone almost everyone, is focused on, I got to go make my money and make my life and make this work. I don't want to be that kind of person. I want to be a person who is willing to challenge other people. How can we help each other? And so I want to make sure I'm actually open to receiving help from others, whether that be family members, friends, listeners from this show, guests who are coming on the show. Is there a way that I can better welcome help from others because I want to make sure I'm not giving resistance to people subconsciously. Does that make sense?
Yes, because I went through it myself.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're talking about, because when you when you are young, especially, you feel like you want to achieve things and you can do it. It's kind of harder to accept help. Plus, you feel guilty for asking help. You feel like maybe you're weak for asking for help. And I kind of went through that. And at some point in time, I realized that I'm always trying to help others. And when I say no to that help, it's like somebody is trying to give me a gift and I'm saying, no, I don't want your gift. If when I feel good by helping other people, why don't I let that person also feel good by helping me? So once I realized that we live in a society where we depend on each other and we help other people and they help us, and it's okay when you get help, that does not mean weak. It just means you are wise and you are willing to give. You're not just like, trying to suck in all the help and not willing to help them. Right. But when you get into this reciprocity and when you become a good listener and are always kind of focused on win-win situation, then you can receive the help with grace and give the help with open heart.
I think that being willing to allow people to serve you, to help you, to wish you well with the way that they treat you can be healthy to do that, instead of just looking at people like you don't want to take anything from them. Being open and willing to work together, create a win-win situation, as you say. It's something that I've struggled with in the past without realizing that I was doing it. And as I grow in self-awareness and I grow in the faith, I kind of learned that it's important for me to not only give, but also to receive. Dr. Rozina, how can the audience connect with you after the show? Where can we find your work?
You can get the book at stresstojoy.com or Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can get all the programs that I produce, I put on my website, drrozina.com. But the best way to reach me would be to download some of the gifts I have prepared for the listeners. If somebody wants to download the gifts, I have prepared three gifts for the listeners. One is a PDF from my guided gratitude journal that you can start your gratitude practice right away. The second one is an audio recording of a mindful driving exercise that we were talking earlier about. And then the third one is a video of how to stop worrying. You can go to stresstojoy.com/podcast gifts. Again, stresstojoy.com/podcast gifts. And you'd be able to download these gifts, and then you would have direct access to my email too.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rozina, for coming on the Heart Healthy Hustle and for also providing not only insight into psychology, but also into living a more joyful life and mitigating stress. Guys, be sure to check that out. That's stresstojoy.com/podcast gifts, singular podcast gifts. So go ahead and check that out. And thank you, Rozina, for providing that for the listeners. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, and gifts has S at the end. So gifts.
Yes. Is there anything else you would leave as an encouraging word to the listener?
This is the first day of the rest of your life. I like to say that. And continue to do good. And I'm really happy and grateful to be part of your life for this short period of time. And I hope some of the techniques that you learned would continue to help you and make your life better, and you can transform your stress to joy and live the life that you're meant to, with purpose, love, and happiness.
Congratulations on making it to the end of this episode. What about this episode stood out to you? Next, I need your help sharing this show. I want this podcast to impact and reach 6,000 people per episode by August 31st, 2019. And I want us to reach 15,000 people per month by March 29th, 2020. Have you been enjoying multiple episodes of The Heart Healthy Hustle? I'm thrilled to share with you an exclusive invitation to join our new Facebook community. To get to know other Heart Healthy Hustlers, simply go to thehearthealthyhustle.com/Facebook, where you can expect to see different members of our community being featured weekly in Facebook Live calls. I appreciate all of your love and support, and I will see you in the next episode. As always, be generous on every occasion. There is a story for you, and live wide open.